Okay, today's video we are going to talk about Google Ads lead closing rates. And what is a good closing rate from search ads that you're running through your Google Ads account? What is a bad one? Do this wrong, i.e. your sales process, lead handling process, which I'm going to tell you the key things that you need to know to get a decent closing rate. But do this wrong, you're obviously never going to make Google Ads work and specifically be profitable with an ROI that you're going to find acceptable of like 800 to 1,000%. I don't care how good your Google search ads are set up. Half of the equation as to how much money you're going to make out of Google search ads, just to be frank about it, it's going to come from the lead handling, if you're generating leads, that is. Half of it's going to come from just the Google Ads side. Ad setup, landing page setup, to keep it simple. And of course, targeting setup, if you want to add that in there. So the reason why I'm making this video primarily is because people make all kinds of mistakes, and I'd like to talk about the mistakes that people mainly make that's going to completely cripple your Google search campaigns. But with that said, what kind of a range that you should expect from your campaigns in terms of that closing rate you're getting from your leads? In short, you're going to be somewhere between 2 and 90%. I know that's a huge effing range here, but it is what it is. I hate giving people, I personally hate when I ask a question to people and they say, it depends. I hate that more than anybody else. I know you hate it too. So I'm going to give you some ranges here as well as to what you're, in addition to just saying 2 to 90%. So you can understand where you should be based upon, and this is all predicated on the amount of the cost of what you're selling. Why? Because, or the reason for that is because the more expensive of a thing you're selling, whether product, service, whatever, you're just going to have a lower closing rate because it's a bigger decision. I don't care who the salesperson is. You're only going to close when you sell a $100,000 ticketed item. You're only going to close 10% if you do everything right. That's just it is what it is. And if you're selling a $20 item, if you were generating leads for that for whatever reason, if you're not closing 90% of those plus, you've got some major problems. And so with that, I'll give you the range. I'll also tell you the key facts that you need to know so you actually do end up in that range. Or in general, if you want to just, because these are just basic, a general range with people with general stuff that you got the main stuff in place. You're not doing things totally wrong where you should be. If you want to take things beyond this, or just basically do a lot more than you're doing right now, you add these key things in here, and ooh baby, you're going to have a lot higher closing rate. And it's all stuff anybody can do. I'll tell you up front that I run an ad agency here. Lots of times people say, we're not getting the sales, and I say, I'm getting you the leads, and they say, but I'm not making any money. And that's not my problem, first of all. I'm thinking that, I don't say that, but then I say, well, what's your sales process like? And I've got to help them with their entire sales process too, because they don't have a clue. Most people don't have a clue when it comes to doing good lead handling to get a decent closing rate, one that will get you that 1,000% ROI that you're looking for. But then I'll give them these other things that they can do, and they don't want to do it because it requires work. And I don't want to do any work to make millions of dollars. I just want it to all happen and fall in my lap in a nice, neat pile. And I'll just scoop it up and take it to the bank. And sorry, if it were that easy to make money with Google search ads, your competitors would have already been doing it a long time ago. As you will agree with me, I'm sure, that everybody in your entire industry's heard of Google Ads, right? So if you're going to make millions of dollars with it, what makes you think that you're going to slide up in there and just wing it and it's going to be, you're going to make the millions? And why hasn't somebody else done it already if that was the case? You can beat everybody in your industry and therefore make millions. But you have to put the stuff into action. And because most people are lazy, that works to your advantage. Because you just, the stuff that's logical that people should be doing, they know they can do, they don't do. You do it, you're going to make all the millions. They're not. you're going to be able to afford to run your ads permanently at the top of Google. They're not. So with all that said, I'll get into the lead closing rates, what you could expect for a closing rate if you do things right, and then of course, how to do things right. The main key things that you want to follow that applies to all businesses that are generating leads. So getting into the content here, half of what you need to do to make Google Ads profitable, like I said before, comes down to your lead handling process. I can get you the most qualified lead on the planet. Somebody who's dead set in buying your product or service. I could, just to give you an idea here, if you were a plumber and you sell broken toilet repair, you got a broken toilet, somebody needs it repaired, they call you for that, you can fumble that and end up only closing half of those leads if you don't have the key other stuff in place here that you need to have in place, or half or less, whereas the other person's going to get 95% of those. Really, it just comes down to whether or not you want to put these key things into place or not. So hiring an ad person to make your ads more profitable when you really less than half-ass your sales and lead handling process, you're basically wasting your money, and it's only going to get so good until you face the reality of you got to optimize the lead handling process as well. Ideally, you obviously optimize both, but you can almost think of like both being a bottleneck. If you make your sales process really good, and you only focus on that, you're going to be hindered because you got to have traffic that's qualified. And then on the flip side, I could give you all the good leads all day long. They're only going to get so cheap and so qualified, and if you don't handle the leads right, you're still going to not make a profit or suitable enough of a profit. So you're going to end up somewhere in between 2 and 90% of a closing rate, depending on your market and how you close. If you do most of the things fairly well, you're going to have a closing rate somewhere in this general range based upon how much what you're selling actually is. So, and if you sell multiple things at different prices and all that, what you want to do is divide the total number of transactions you've had at your company divided by the total revenue at your company and find your average transaction value. And then now you'll know what your closing rate should be on the leads you're getting from Google search ads, okay? So with that said, if you are selling something for less than $1,000, which, by the way, if you're under $100 and you're generating leads, I don't know why you're doing it, because you can easily just make the website a little bit better and not have to talk to anybody, for the most part. I will still have a telephone number and or a contact form on my site so people can ask questions. I'm not saying that at all. But if your primary means of business is they got to contact you, you could just make your website, take the orders there and focus on that. Because the money that you're going to spend talking to people is cost prohibitive and going to hold you back on what you can do. If you're between $100 and $1,000 on your product, service, or price, with that, you should be at a closing rate, if you do everything right, at 90%. And I know that sounds really high, but these people are calling, assuming your ads are set up right. That's a big if, but if your ads are set up right, they're calling, they're looking to buy. If you mess that up, you got other foundational stuff that you really screwed up, okay? There's a way to get to a 90% closing rate when you sell something for $300, $400, $500, and they're already calling to buy in the first place. You just got to put those wheels into motion, put the things in place that you need, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But to give you, to go further here, to know if you're not in that like $100 to $1,000 range, if you will, if you're between $1,000 and $3,000 in terms of your average ticket size, you should be able to, if you have these things in place, closing at 80%. That also sounds very high and hard to achieve, but I promise you, you do the stuff that I'm mentioning here in just a second, you'll get these numbers as well. It's not going to be 2 seconds to set it up, but that's the reason why it works, baby. If you're between $3,000 and $6,000 in terms of average ticket size, you should be around a 70% closing rate if you do all these things. If you're between $6,000 and $10,000 in average ticket size, you should be able to, if you do all these things, get a 60% closing rate on the leads you develop out of Google search ads. If you're between 6 and 10,000, you're at 60% closing rate. 10 and 20,000, you're at a 50% closing rate if you do it all right. And it keeps going because you can see the pattern here. The more expensive it is that a thing you're trying to sell, whether product or service, the lower your maxed out closing rates are going to get that you could expect out of the stuff that normally gets you a high closing rate. But also put a frame of reference around this, and I think you can't see this on your screen, but I put 100,000 plus 10%. So if you get up to 100 grand, you're between like 100 grand and a million, you do everything right, you're still only going to close 10%. So this gives you a general ballpark of the things, at least that I'm going to mention here, that you should be doing. If you put them into place, how much more money you can actually make. So with that, key factors here, okay, going into this, how you actually get a 90% closing rate when you sell something for 500 bucks, or an 80% closing rate when you sell something for 2 grand. Comes down to 4 key things here, okay? Not easy to do, but anybody can do these, and it's not going to cost you millions to do either. First thing to mention, who answers the phone, i.e. who's the salesperson, is going to decide if you get a 20% closing rate or a 50% closing rate, a factor of 2.5. People all the time that I deal with at my firm think the person who answers the phone, if they sell like a plumbing service, that's not a salesperson, that's just a secretary. That's not what it is. It's a salesperson. You may not call it a salesperson. You don't need to call it a salesperson. It is a salesperson whether you like it or not. And who answers the phone, based upon how they sound, their pitch, their tone, how likable they are, all of that stuff is going to matter specifically. And if you want to add that in there, it's how you teach them to answer the phone, because these people can be trained. But a very sincere, likable person that answers that phone, that answers it in a way that, basically, because just to give you a parallel example here, I saw a plumbing company. They'd answer the phone, and instead of just saying, Joe's Plumbing, or whatever, or even worse, people are stupid enough to just say hello, because you want to confirm to them right when they answer the phone that what the company that they saw on the landing page you took them to is the company in question. But where they would say Joe's Plumbing Services, where customer satisfaction is our prerogative, and I apologize if I don't have the exact wording here, but is our prerogative and our sole mission as a company. What can I do for you today? And answering the phone like that shoots up the closing rate a ton. Why? Because it makes you feel like this company is really on top of it, and they care about the services they deliver. So if I had any kind of, if I questioned it at all, like what kind of company I'm dealing with, I don't now. Because any company that's half-assing their work isn't going to be answering the phone like that, or that's the thought process here. And none of the people in your entire local space, I encourage you to call them all. You're not going to hear anybody doing that. That's a 1%er thing. So get yourself the best person you can afford. And what people do is they say, I can't afford a good salesperson until I make more money. But then you end up with shitty closing rates, and then you're throwing away 10 grand worth of revenue per month because you don't have the right person, assuming they could close. I hear this all the time. I'll invest money into my Google ads when it's working. Well, that's like saying you're going to put gas in your car once it's already moving. You don't get one without the other. Your closing rates have to be so high just to pay for the ads so you can scale up. People think, well, when I make money off of this ad spend, I can scale up, then I can afford the good salesperson. No, you afford the good salesperson now, which allows you to scale your ads. You can deny it, kick and scream all you want, and pretend like nobody can afford a good salesperson, or you could just hire the damn good salesperson to answer the phone. Pay them, for a secretary, if that's all you got to do, pay somebody 15% over market rates, and then you have 200 resumes to pick from, and find the most pleasant sounding person. if you're talking about a real salesperson for to sell a more high-end product, don't just hire somebody who hasn't had a job for a while. Find somebody who has a good history and can sell more complicated, harder to sell products than what you're selling. So anyway, I think I explained enough about that. Second thing, how fast you answer the phone. So and this costs you nothing, but practically nothing. I got clients all the time who say, well, we can't answer the phone because that person might be busy when somebody calls, and we can't answer all the calls when somebody calls, and I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so you're going to throw away 10 grand a month worth of calls that once they call and they get a voicemail, they're never calling you back again. You try to call them back, they're never going to answer. What's more expensive here, ultimately? And I get it. Once in a while, you're going to miss a call because you don't have 100 calls a day. They're going to call at the same time as somebody else calling. But if it gets any type of regular where people are not, you're unable to answer the phone, you need a second person, and or you need to have. This is what irritates me the most. People say they can't do that. They can't answer every phone call. But then what is the owner doing? Out on the golf course at 11 a.m. That phone call, if you can't answer it when the primary person who answers the phone isn't in, you route it to the person to yourself. And you do that, you get off your ass and you do that, you answer those calls until you can afford to hire a second salesperson. If you can't bitch about what you're making and skip this, because it's this is sales and marketing 101. You got to be able to answer the damn phone when the lead comes in. Lead ain't going to care if somebody else is on the phone. They just want to talk to somebody and that's it. And things are the way they are. They aren't the way you want them, hypothetically. They are what they are. You got to answer the phone right away. And you can't wait 15 rings for it to answer the phone. You got to answer it within 3 rings. Furthermore, when you answer, you got to be able to talk to them right away, or at the very least, which still isn't ideal, transfer them and then them being on hold for less than 30 seconds. I see all the time people transfer them. It takes 2 minutes to talk to somebody. They're hanging up after a minute and a half of that bullshit. So the more of this you do to your leads, the less you're going to close. You can blame it on Google Ads all you want. You can blame it on your salespeople all you want. Mostly people like to blame their ads. This is on you. You have the power to control what the consumer experiences after they call. Form lead wise, you got to answer the damn form lead within 15 minutes. I encourage you to go find the big firms that handle hundreds of leads a day, like Veterans United, a huge veterans mortgage and company. Go ahead and type in their form. Wait and see how long it takes for you to get called back. 1 minute. People are going to sit back and say, well, we can't afford to do that. Okay, well, you want 30% of your money? Because if you wait longer than 15 minutes to answer that form lead, you're getting 30% contact rates from those form leads. It's up to you. You want it? You not want it? Ultimately, you got to be able to answer that phone call that form lead within 15 minutes, and ideally, if you want to be real serious about it and get these kind of closing rates, you need to have it so when that form is filled out, a phone call automatically is generated to your salesperson or call center with an audio message that says, John Smith just filled out a form. Press 1 to get in contact with John Smith. First, you hit 1, and it's literally within 30 seconds. That almost guarantees you get in contact with the person then, because they'll not have moved on to anything else, or even the next company that they potentially were going to get a quote from. So you got to get them when they're hot. So that right there will determine about 0.5. So if you were at a 30%, you can easily knock that down to a 22.5% if you're not answering the leads right away. Or should I say you can double it. So if you were at 30% now and you're just kind of, you're doing a lot of what I just said, and then you don't do that anymore, and you get things up to the standard I said or suggested you should go at or be at, you can take yourself from a 30 to a 60% closing rate just with that one thing. by itself, which you may not say is simple, but you want to go from a 30 to a 60% closing rate, just do what I said. I got screwed up here. I thought my numbers were mixed up. 2.5 times. So the form leads, going back to that, 30% contact rates on the form leads. So depending if you got more calls or more form fills on a form, if you start answering just your form leads within a minute, you will 2.5 times your closing rate just from that one thing alone. So on phone calls, answering the phone quicker, it's going to be more like a doubling here. So a lot of you guys have way more phone calls. It's 90% more phone calls. A lot of you guys, it's just purely form fills. So it depends on, which end of the spectrum that you're on. But form fills, and even if, by the way, if you have a form fill for somebody to get a piece of content as to where you're driving people to like get a white paper or something like that, that means the form lead, still answering the form lead within 15 minutes and calling them up and asking them, how do you like the content that you're reading? I tell people to do this all the time. Some do, some don't, and they end up making a lot more money as a result. So if you're at 10% now, you can get to 25%. If you're mainly form leads, your phone calls, you can be, it's more, closer to double or whatever. So if you were starting at 10%, you can get to 25% potentially just with answering or having a better person to answer. Then if you were to you could go from 25% to 50% by answering faster itself, assuming you have form leads mostly. And then going into the next thing, follow-up. How good's your follow-up game? If you answer the form leads within 15 minutes, you don't need as much follow-up because they're just going to answer right away. If you're not, you need to be following up to 15, 20 times once you get a form lead. Why? Because it takes an average of 7 times just for them to answer the form lead if it's been more than 15 minutes before you answer that form lead. And a lot of people don't do this because they just expect people to answer right away or not. A lot of people are busy. They're not, it's just harder than it was to get in contact with those form leads. So you follow up. If they call and you couldn't get to the phone call right away, you should call them 15, 20 times to go along with that. And I know people won't want to do that, but I promise you, you'll, if you were at, 10% closing rate now, you just add that element to what you're doing, you can get to like 15% or a 0.5 factor difference. So, but along with that, even if you talk to the person, they already know what's going on, or fill out the form, then you call them and you had that sales discussion with them, you should have a CRM system to track these leads, and if they did not say no, outright say, no, I'm not interested, please, I'm doing something else, or I bought something else. You need to follow up with that person forever. Even if it's something like a broken pipe. You had the conversation, thank you, Mr. Jones, I'll be here if you have any questions. You call back you set a reminder on the CRM saying to call back next week and check how Mr. Jones is about the decision, whether or not, or how to deal with this broken pipe. You call, oh, I haven't decided yet. Okay, set a reminder to come back in a week and check. And then you keep doing that. You teach your salespeople or your person who answers the phone to keep doing that until they say, no, I'm not interested, or I bought something else, or I'm not buying it. So you're on every call and follow-up call, you're either looking for a yes, I'm buying, or no, stop contacting me, essentially. So with that, with following up in case you didn't get a hold of them right away until they do respond, you're going to get 0.5x increase in closing rate from whatever you have right now, just adding that one little element to what you're doing. If you're an e-commerce company selling products, you should also do it. If somebody calls, you call them back until they decide. Nobody does this. So you have that, and then there's another type of follow-up, which is non-sales related follow-up. So, which will give you another 0.5x difference in your closing rate just with this by itself, either direct mail or email. So once you've already talked to that prospect, or even if you haven't talked to them yet, they should automatically be in an email drip sequence that goes out right away. Everybody knows what email drip sequences are, where you get their email address and then you keep emailing them using a program like MailChimp. But I work with lots of different clients, talk to lots of different companies, hundreds over the last 10 years. Almost nobody does email drip sequences right. They either don't do them at all, or they do them and it's horseshit what they're telling them. Like, oh, we're in business 25 years now. We just celebrated our 25-year anniversary, or we just came out with this product, or whatnot. User doesn't give a shit. And guess what they do when they get that email? They click spam, or they click unsubscribe, or they ignore it. And then the next time they get an email, it goes in. They never open it, or it goes into spam, or whatever. You got to think about what you would want to receive if you're selling, let's say, a mole removal product. I want to know information about the success rates of people who used this mole removal product. I want to see, the story of a famous person who used this mole removal product. I want to see, like the horror stories of using other ways to get rid of moles. You get the general idea. Every piece of content like that would be useful to the user, and it does no actual selling on its own, at least directly anyway. What it does do is it gets the person more and more familiar with your brand. So if they are going to go ahead and buy from somebody, it's going to be you. The reason why people don't do this is because it's expensive to put together good content like that. You can't hire some run-of-the-mill content marketing agency to set those emails up, because they're going to be dog shit. I know, just take my word for it. You need an actual sales copywriter to do that. And it's going to cost you like $3 a word to put together that kind of compelling content that people open, they read, they were happy they read it, and when they get another email from you, they damn well want to read it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money and time. So you got email, right? And then that can also extend to physical mail. Why is it that you're going to pay $200, $300, $400 a lead in some cases, and you're not going to send them anything in the mail to try to close that lead? You could send them information like I talked about with the mold thing, about with the same information, basically whatever you drip out in email, you drip out through physical mail. You can do that as well, but in addition, or more important than that, is once you've talked to them, you send them out a physical mailer with a package that has a bunch of information about your company. A brochure, more about your guarantee warranty program, a book, a free book that your company's put out if you had one, that kind of stuff. And when they get that package, it's all about going back to what I was saying before. How do you get that person to go with you if they're going to go with somebody? And the fact that they got this package from you, you've skyrocketed your chance it's going to be you versus somebody else. Even if your offer is the same as everybody else's. The fact that you took the time to send them this package, they're going to appreciate the hell out of it. I do it for our own firm. We talk to somebody, we send out a package full of stuff. Most people are going to say, oh, that's too expensive. I'm not wasting my money on that. But in our case, double-digit increase in the amount of people that will work with us per proposal we send out. So if you want to increase your lead closing rates, don't just stop with the one conversation you had with them. Send them quality information in an email, in the mail. You're going to increase your closing rates. Unless it's something they either have to buy right now, like they got a flooded basement and you offer flooded basement water removal, this is going to increase your closing rates. You can add another 0.5% or 0.5x increase in your closing rates just by doing those things I just mentioned as well. So you could start with an 8% closing rate that you hypothetically have today, which would be garbage. You can get it up to an 80% once you add in these 4 elements here, individual 4 elements. Get the right person answering the phone. Teach them how to answer it using a script. Don't wing it. Then make sure they're able to answer within 3 rings each time, or that the form lead is answered by that person within 1 minute. Then, once you talk to them, you follow up with them 20 different times until they make the decision, basically forever until they made a decision one way or another. You have a CRM to track this, because if you just tell your your salesperson that answers the phone to do this follow-up, they're not going to do it. You got to have a way to go into with your CRM. The reason why you have CRMs is not just to keep track of customer information, because you can technically do that in a spreadsheet. You need to be able to run a report as an owner and make sure your salesperson is doing the follow-ups. Technically, you could do that in a spreadsheet if you wanted to, but I won't get into that. So you get the idea. And then finally, that you follow up with a quality email sequence, a quality piece of, and use physical mail to leave a lasting impression on the user that you want to buy from you inside your market. So, and then, of course, with the email that you're sending out, not to say you can't have any sales messages in it, but it shouldn't primarily be that, and you shouldn't lead with it. In some cases, like if we had a fertility clinic, just to let you know, we do go more so with information about our clinic right away, instead of what to know about getting a artificial insemination, whatever. And so there isn't a formula to follow for every different type of company out there, because in that case, you already probably know that you're going to go through with that. So the more relevant information would be, what does your clinic look like? What can I expect when I come in for my appointment? That would be more so what you would want to do there, and what we did for this particular clinic, where we had to help them, guide them on the process of getting their email sequence set up. We don't do email sequences directly, but when somebody wants more profit from the leads we're getting them, I tell them what to do, and then I guide them in the right direction, like I'm trying to do with you here. So anyway, that's the formula that you want to follow. It's not complicated. Put those 4 things into play, you can get these kind of numbers here that I mentioned earlier starting out. 80% for 1 to 3K in ticket size or product or service cost, 3 to 6K in product or service cost, you can get a 70% and so forth. You get these kind of numbers here, this is going to be way more than anybody else gets that you're competing against. So it's going to get damn easy to be able to afford to have your ads running on the top of Google for absolutely everything. You pair this information I gave you with the information I share with you on this channel about how to do single keyword ad groups, how to do ads that are going to get click-through rates higher than anybody, landing pages that get conversion rates higher than anybody in your space. You're going to make a ridiculous amount of money. People are just not, they're too lazy to set these mechanisms in place, put these mechanisms into place, because it's not simple. It's not as simple as just hiring somebody and say, Betty, answer the phone. Everybody wants to do that, but your closing rates are going to be dog shit if you do that. You can't wing and leave everything up to chance and expect to make a lot of money from these leads. You got to have a structured process for them to go through. Just like the ads, there's a very structured process to get the right person to see the ad, say something that's going to stand out and be better than all the rest of the ads and information they see on Google, and to get them to call because you conveyed what most people want to know within a very short period of time, within a few seconds. It's all very methodical and organized and deliberate how you get that front end set up to get the lead in the first place, and the back end has to be just as structured. But anybody can do it, and whether you want, if you want the closing rates like this, you got to put it into play, and at least maybe not do the best job, but at least try to do most of it and put your best effort you can towards it, because just by doing that, you'll be ahead of everybody else in your space already, and that's Great. I mean, ultimately, that's what you're going for, because the traffic costs the same, practically speaking, for you as it does for your competitors. Whether you can afford to be at the top of Google in your space and someone else can't is going to be down to you monetizing that traffic better than anybody else. If you can monetize it better, you get it all. And I'll tell you, just as a final thing, 80% of people that are running Google ads don't even make any money. I know, because I look at ads all day long from different people. A lot of people think they're making money, but they don't have their tracking set up right, and they don't make money. They have money coming in from repeat customers, and then therefore they can afford to run it at a loss with their search ads there. But they're not making money. It's really just the 20% are making money because they're paying rock bottom cost per click because they have their ads set up right. And they have a good landing page. They didn't wing that. It was very methodically set up, or pretty much so. And therefore they're getting a lot of leads for the same amount of money that somebody else is getting. Practically speaking, 10 times more leads for the same dollar than the other person that's average, if you will. And then you could carry that over to the sales and lead handling side if you wanted to as well. Because as you know, you could go from an 8 to an 80, going from none of this at all and done everything I mentioned very poorly to everything done well. You could 10 times the amount of sales you're getting on the leads you're getting. So you get 10 times the amount of leads per dollar spent on ads and 10 times your closing rate. You can make 100 times more sales effectively from the crap sales process and the crap ads to the best ads and the best sales process. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to wrap everything up with that. If you have any questions about anything I covered, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. You can ask me, by the way, any ad-related question you'd like to ask. I'd be more than happy to try to answer it for you, as I love just giving back to anybody who watches my channel to help the channel grow. Using my 15 years of experience running ads for our companies that we own and also the clients that we help here at our firm. If you like the channel, by the way, if you like the video, by the way, you should subscribe to the channel, as this channel has information coming from me, somebody who just does ad strategy on Google, Facebook, and so forth for clients all day long, and it's all I do. Not a YouTuber who's just reading off stuff that Google and Facebook are talking about and make money off of advertising. I'm a guy who does ad strategy all day long and has a YouTube channel on the side talking about the experiments and everything that we have that make our ads work so we can guarantee results for our clients, of which is part of our signature part of our service, where we guarantee your results before you have to pay a fee or anything. Therefore, the information is the most relevant information you can find on YouTube, so you should subscribe to this channel if you want to make money with ads for real. And so with that, and if you like the channel, I got written material that's even better over at my blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog, as well as you can read my column that I have over at entrepreneur.com. Beyond that, like I said, I have an ad agency. This is my ad agency. I do all the strategy at my ad agency, and with that, we guarantee our highlight of our service is it's guaranteed PPC. You don't pay any fees to us until we raise your sales or leads up a minimum amount up front to justify the cost of our services. If you want to see if we could potentially work together, you can reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com. Be happy to give you a free assessment to see if we can help you and by how much, if you reach out to me, and so that we have a chance to look at your stuff. Of course, the only catch is we don't work with just anybody, because we got to know we can get good results on your stuff to work together. But if you want to see if we can work together, reach out to me at my site. That's how you would do it, or get the process started. If you aren't going to necessarily want to work with an ad agency like ours, totally understand. However, we can save you a lot of time and a lot of money by using the ad templates that we've already developed for your market already. If you're in a market that we've worked in and not in the same geographic area, same country or whatnot, you can use the templates we develop for your market, buy them from us as far as like a one-time cost, and literally copy paste the results we've developed for your market into your own ad accounts, whether being ads, the campaign templates themselves, the landing page templates themselves, and get the same results we're getting without all the hard work and all the money we had to spend to get to those results, of which a lot of times we spent millions of dollars in advertising spend to figure out what worked in that market. So anyway, we can tell you what results we are getting in that market before you would buy the templates. And so it would be silly not to at least reach out and see if we worked in your market and could use what we've figured out what works in your market already. And similar to that, if you're looking to start a new business, instead of randomly picking something you don't know if it will work or not, why not use a template and pick a market where we have an ad campaign template that works for that market. We have known results in that market, and you could just start out your whole business using that template. We've got several people that have done that now, starting lead selling businesses, starting an e-commerce business when they were doing services previously. So anyway, if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to my firm at guaranteedppc.com, and I'd be more than happy to share with you what's possible, what we have templates for. But with that said, I'll wrap everything up with that. If you have any questions, let me know, like I said in the comments, but I'll see you on the next one. See you later.